Welcome back. In an attempt to help you to achieve greatness today, we are going to talk about one of the most important lessons from Jesus' most powerful teachings. With God, everything is possible. It is ancient wisdom to seek God always and to make impossible things possible, about transformation of humans into deeper and meaningful lives. These priceless teachings have echoed throughout times. We are unity of consciousness, where we help you to achieve personal and spiritual growth. Let us start with the meaning behind the words. There are certain words that remain powerful because they speak to something deeply human. The desire to hope when circumstances appear hopeless. The desire to believe when the path ahead is uncertain. The desire to continue when our own strength seems to have reached its limit. And among the most enduring teachings of Jesus is this profound statement: with God, all things are possible. These words have inspired generations of people through hardship, loss, uncertainty, illness, failure, poverty, disappointment, and moments when the future seemed impossible to understand. But what did Jesus actually mean? Was he promising that every dream will come true? Was he saying that faith allows us to obtain anything we desire? Or was he teaching something deeper about God, humanity, faith, surrender, transformation, and the limits of human power? To understand this teaching properly, we need to look at the moment in which Jesus spoke it. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, "With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." Mark records essentially the same teaching, while Luke expresses it as, "The things which are impossible with men are possible with God." These words were not originally spoken as a generic motivational slogan. They arose from a challenging conversation about wealth, attachment, salvation, and what human beings cannot accomplish through their own power. And that context makes the teaching even more profound, because Jesus was not simply saying, "Dream bigger." He was saying, "Do not measure God's possibilities by the limits of human ability." And that lesson remains deeply relevant today. To understand his teaching, we should briefly understand the world in which Jesus lived. Jesus of Nazareth was a first-century Jewish teacher who lived in Roman-controlled Judea and Galilee. The historical picture comes primarily through the New Testament Gospels and early Christian writings, alongside references in non-Christian ancient sources. Historians generally place his public ministry in the late 20s or early 30s CE, and his crucifixion under the Roman governor Pontius Pilate. The Gospel narratives describe Jesus as being born in Bethlehem and raised in Nazareth. Around the beginning of his public ministry, he was associated with John the Baptist, gathered disciples, taught throughout Galilee and Judea, and became known for his teachings, acts of healing, compassion, and his proclamation of the kingdom of God. His message challenged people to look beyond external appearances. He spoke to people who were rich and poor, powerful and powerless. religious and marginalized, healthy and suffering. He taught about love, forgiveness, humility, prayer, compassion, justice, faith, stewardship, and the transformation of the human heart. His teachings were demanding. He did not simply tell people to feel inspired. He asked them to change, to love differently, to forgive differently, to serve differently, to understand greatness differently. Eventually, Jesus traveled to Jerusalem, where he was arrested and crucified under Pontius Pilate. Christians proclaim that he rose from the dead, and his resurrection became the central foundation of Christian faith. Whether approached through faith, history, theology, or philosophy, the influence of Jesus' teachings on humanity has been extraordinary. And among these teachings, the phrase, "With God all things are possible," offers one of the deepest lessons about what happens when human limitation meets divine possibility. Let us draw from these teachings to Lesson 1. Do not confuse human limits with divine limits. The first, and perhaps most important lesson, is this: what is impossible for us is not necessarily impossible with God. The statement itself makes a contrast. Human beings have limitations. We have limited knowledge, limited resources, limited strength, limited time, limited understanding. We cannot see the entire future. We cannot control every circumstance. We cannot heal every wound through our own effort. We cannot guarantee every outcome. And this recognition is not weakness. It is humility, understanding, and surrender to the higher power. Jesus was teaching his listeners not to confuse their own limitations with the limits of God. Today, this lesson can transform the way we approach difficult situations. Perhaps you are facing something that looks impossible. A relationship seems beyond repair. A dream seems too distant. A financial situation feels overwhelming. A personal change seems beyond your abilities. You may look at the circumstances and say, "I cannot do this." And perhaps by yourself, you truly cannot. But that does not mean the story ends there. These teachings invite another question: what might God make possible that I cannot yet see? The lesson is not to ignore reality. It is to refuse to believe that reality is limited to what we can currently see. Surrendering to God does not require pretending that a mountain is a hill. The teaching says the mountain may be real, but God is greater than the mountain. Let us continue with Lesson 2. God's possibility is not a promise of every desire. This distinction is extremely important. When Jesus says all things are possible with God, he is not necessarily saying, "Whatever I want, God must give me." That interpretation turns faith into a transaction. It can make spirituality into a form of wish fulfillment. But Jesus' teachings consistently point towards something deeper: the transformation of the person, the alignment of the heart, the surrender of selfish ambition, the willingness to seek God's will rather than simply demanding that God serve our will. The context of the statement demonstrates this. Jesus had just spoken about the difficulty of the rich entering the kingdom of God. His listeners asked, who then could be saved? Jesus responded by pointing beyond human capability toward God. So the statement is deeply connected to grace. Human beings cannot accomplish everything through effort alone. There are transformations that require something deeper. There are spiritual changes that cannot simply be purchased. There are hearts that cannot be changed by force. There are situations where human pride must give way to divine grace. We can therefore ask, am I asking God merely to give me what I want? Or am I asking God to transform me into someone capable of receiving and using blessings wisely? That is a much deeper prayer. Perhaps one of the most important takeaway from this teaching is that faith can begin where control ends. Modern life teaches us to control the schedule, control the career, control the image, control the outcome, control the future. But eventually, every human being encounters something that cannot be controlled. A diagnosis, a loss, a change, a betrayal, a departure, an unexpected event, a future we cannot predict. At such moments, Jesus' teaching offers a different path. Not control, trust. This does not mean becoming passive. It means recognizing the boundary between what we can do and what we cannot do. We can act, we can pray, we can prepare, we can seek wise counsel, we can change our behavior, we can forgive, we can work, we can serve. But ultimately, we cannot control everything. And surrendering that illusion can bring tremendous peace. So today, ask yourself, what is mine to do? And then, what must I place into God's hands? That simple distinction can change the way we experience life. Do everything that is yours to do, then release the outcome to God. That is not weakness. That is trust. Lesson 4 is centered actions. Faith. Words. Possibility requires faith, but faith also requires action. There is another important lesson. Faith is not an excuse for doing nothing. Jesus' life was filled with action. He traveled, he taught, he served, he healed. He challenged injustice. He gathered disciples. He prayed. He confronted difficult people. He cared for those whom society overlooked. His example demonstrates that faith and action belong together. If you are praying for a new beginning, ask, what action can I take today? If you are praying for healing, ask, what healthy step can I take today? If you are praying for reconciliation, ask, what conversation needs to happen? If you are praying for abundance, ask, what responsibility, discipline, or opportunity am I being called to embrace? God's possibility does not eliminate human responsibility. It gives responsibility hope. So today, are you waiting for a miracle while refusing to take the next practical step? Do not wait for a miracle while refusing to take the next practical step. Pray, then move. trust. Then act, ask for guidance, then listen. Faith becomes powerful when it enters everyday life. Perhaps one of the most profound lessons from these teachings is that God can transform the human heart. One of Jesus' greatest teachings is that true transformation begins inside. He repeatedly focused attention on the heart rather than appearances. This is why his commandment concerning love is so central. Jesus taught, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind." And he immediately connected love of God with love of neighbor. This gives us another interpretation of everything is possible. Perhaps one of the greatest miracles is the transformation of the human heart. A bitter person can learn forgiveness. A fearful person can discover courage. A selfish person can learn generosity. A broken person can rediscover hope. A person consumed by anger can learn peace. A person who feels spiritually lost can find meaning again. These transformations can sometimes appear impossible, but Jesus directs us toward divine possibility. So our job for today is to never assume that someone is permanently defined by who they have been. People can change, hearts can soften, relationships can heal, lives can be redirected. And sometimes the greatest miracle is not changing the world around us. It is allowing God to change us within it. The next teaching is so important. Love is one of the greatest expressions of faith and surrender. Jesus' teaching about possibility must never be separated from his teaching about love. In the Gospel of John, Jesus gives his followers a new commandment: love one another. In the Sermon on the Mount, he goes even further, teaching his listeners to love their enemies and pray for those who persecute them. This is extraordinarily difficult, and perhaps that is precisely why it matters. It is easy to love people who love us. It is much harder to respond to hostility without becoming consumed by hatred. Jesus' teaching does not mean accepting abuse or abandoning healthy boundaries. It means refusing to allow hatred to become the master of our hearts. So today, ask, can God make forgiveness possible where I thought forgiveness was impossible? Can God help me release resentment? Can God help me wish healing for someone who hurt me? Can God help me become free without becoming bitter? This is where all things are possible becomes deeply personal. This teaching is about future. Do not let tomorrow steal today. One of the greatest enemies of faith is constant worry about the future. Jesus taught, "Take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself." This does not mean we should never plan. It means we should not allow fear of tomorrow to consume the grace available today. Tomorrow has not arrived. Today has, this breath has, this opportunity has, this conversation has, this moment has. So, instead of asking, how will I solve everything? Ask, what is the next careful step? You may not be given the entire staircase. You may only be shown the next step. Take it, trust, then take the next. This teaching is so important as it teaches surrender to God. When life feels impossible, seek rest in God. There are moments when strength does not mean pushing harder. Sometimes strength means knowing when to rest. Jesus offered these words, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." There is tenderness in this teaching. Jesus did not simply call people to achieve more. He invited the weary to come and rest. Today, many people live under constant pressure. More work, more information, more responsibilities, more expectations, more comparison, more noise, and eventually the soul becomes tired. Jesus' teaching reminds us that spiritual life includes restoration. So the takeaway is, you do not have to prove your worth through exhaustion. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to pray. You are allowed to breathe. You are allowed to place your burdens before God. Sometimes divine possibility begins with something as simple as allowing yourself to rest. The next teaching is foolproof. Seek God's kingdom before the things that distract you. Jesus taught his followers to seek God's kingdom and righteousness first. This is a teaching about priorities. What comes first? Money, status, recognition, possessions, fear, competition, or God? This does not mean that material life is inherently wrong. Rather, Jesus challenges us not to make material things the center of our identity, because whatever we place at the center eventually influences everything else. So, when God is placed at the center, success can become service, money can become stewardship, influence can become responsibility, knowledge can become wisdom, abundance can become generosity, achievement can become contribution. The question is not simply, how much can I gain? It is, what can I do with what I have been given? The last teaching is, the greatest possibility may be hope. Finally, perhaps the most important lesson is hope. Human beings can survive extraordinary circumstances when hope remains alive. Jesus' life itself is central to his followers, understanding his death not as the end, but through the lens of resurrection and new life. It is the transformational process that inspires people around the world. Death is not final. It is the spiritual transformation beyond death and surrender to God's consciousness. That story became a profound symbol of hope, that apparent endings are not always final, that suffering does not have the final word, that death does not have the final word, that darkness does not have the final word, and that God can bring new life where human beings see only an ending. So your takeaway for today can be, perhaps your life contains a chapter you wish you could erase. Perhaps something ended. Perhaps something was lost. Perhaps a dream failed. Perhaps you have been disappointed. But your present chapter does not have to be your final chapter. With God, transformation remains possible. Healing remains possible. Forgiveness remains possible. Purpose remains possible. Hope remains possible. And sometimes the miracle is not that life returns to exactly what it was. Sometimes the miracle is that something new is created. What would be the most important takeaway for today? What should we ultimately take from this teaching? With God, everything is possible. It is not simply believe and you will get everything you want. It is much deeper. It means that your limitations end when surrendering to God. Do not allow fear to become your definition of the future. Do not let failure convince you that transformation is impossible. Do not assume a heart cannot change. Do not assume forgiveness cannot happen. Do not assume that a new beginning is unavailable. Do not believe that you must carry every burden alone. And do not allow circumstances to become greater than your faith. The teaching calls us toward humility, toward trust, toward action, toward prayer, toward love, toward service, toward surrender, and ultimately toward God. As we come to the end of this journey, take a quiet moment and let the central message settle within your heart. With God, all things are possible. Not because life will always be easy, not because every prayer will be answered exactly as we imagine, not because every dream will unfold according to our plans, but because our possibilities are not limited to what we can currently understand. There are moments when life asks us to walk through uncertainty, moments when we cannot see what comes next, moments when our strength feels insufficient, moments when the future appears closed. And yet, faith whispers, keep going, pray, trust, act, release, begin again. Perhaps you are carrying a situation today that feels impossible. Bring it to God. Perhaps there is a relationship you believe cannot heal. Bring it to God. Perhaps there is a dream that seems too distant. Bring it to God. Perhaps you have made mistakes that you believe define you forever. Bring them to God. Perhaps you have lost something precious and cannot imagine finding joy again. Bring your grief to God. You do not have to pretend that everything is easy. You do not have to deny the difficulty. You simply have to remember that difficulty is not the same thing as impossibility. Jesus' teaching invites us to live with a larger horizon, to recognize that human beings have limits, but God does not, to work diligently while surrendering outcomes, to pursue our purpose while remaining open to divine direction, to love even when love is difficult, to forgive even when forgiveness takes time, to rest when our souls become weary, to begin again when we thought the story was finished. And perhaps that is the deepest lesson. The greatest miracle may not always be that circumstances change immediately. Sometimes the miracle is that we change. Our fear becomes faith. Our anxiety becomes trust. Our resentment becomes forgiveness. Our weakness becomes humility. Our disappointment becomes wisdom. Our suffering becomes compassion. Our ending becomes a beginning. and our uncertainty becomes an opportunity to walk more deeply with God. So wherever you are today, do not give up simply because you cannot yet see the way. Do not call something impossible simply because it is beyond your current ability. Do not let yesterday write the final sentence of tomorrow. Take the next faithful step. Do what you can. Love where you can. Serve where you can. Pray when you need guidance. Rest when you need restoration. And leave room for God to do what only God can do. For there are possibilities we cannot yet see, doors we do not yet know exist, paths we cannot yet imagine, and transformations that may be waiting beyond our present understanding. Remember the words of Jesus. With God, all things are possible. Carry them not as a promise that life will give you everything you ask for, but as an invitation to trust that God's power is greater than your limitations, greater than your fear, greater than your past, greater than the circumstances surrounding you today. Walk forward with faith. Walk forward with humility. Walk forward with love. And above all, walk forward with God. We are unity of consciousness, where we help you to achieve personal and spiritual growth. Because where human strength reaches its limit, divine possibility begins. And so it is